My name is Curci and welcome back to Controller Conscience for episode 2. I have a couple of things I want to talk about today, but first, I kind of wanted to talk about this last week, but I didn't know how it was going to look, and that is the layout of the show. Basically, this camera angle is going to be off to the left of your screen, and on the right of the screen over here is where you're going to be able to see all of the topics that I will be talking about today. So if you want to jump to any of those topics, you can just click on the links. It will jump you to that part of the show where I start talking about that thing, and la-di-da, everybody's happy. So what other things I want to talk about today was obviously Watch Dogs. Not obviously, but I started playing Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs was released about a month ago. I finally got around to playing it, and I have some impressions on it that I wanted to put out to everybody. Also, the SGDQ, which is your Summer Games Done Quick, started going. This is an event. It's basically a bunch of people speed running a bunch of games, which I never really started looking at speedrunning until I started watching the stream on Twitch, and I was like, this is very enjoyable. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit. Also, the Steam summer sales finally kicked off a lot sooner than people expected it to. It kind of came out of nowhere. Usually it's in mid-July, but this time it finally kicked off. We're going to be talking about that. Plus, one of the games that I actually acquired thanks to the summer Steam sales. That's a tongue twister, isn't it? Papers, Please, I acquired for $3. 70% off, and we're going to be talking about because that game is awesome. I talked about it with my friend. My friend says it's not good. I say it's incredible. I also kind of want to get into The Forest a little bit because that was a game that interests me, yet I have some impressions on it. I haven't played it, but I want to play it, but I also don't want to play it, and mainly because it's early access, and I'm going to talk about some early access games and does it help? Does it help promote? Does it help with development? What is it? Like, I don't know if I think it is recently become a thing, but also there was an interview that I saw recently, E3 interview that I had missed about Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, where the people from Sledgehammer Games are actually talking about the game and some of the cool things that are going to be introduced into it. And very cool information that I didn't know before, which I think is really going to start painting a picture of what Advanced Warfare is actually going to look like. I want to talk also about Battlefield Hardline. The beta has been going on for a while, and I know some people that have played the game that have gotten their impressions, plus I've looked up some impressions online, so there's a couple of things that I kind of wanted to address there. But I want to kick things off with Watch Dogs, of course, because that is the thing that has been occupying my time. And like I said, I've beaten the game. I beat it last night. But this game is a month old already. It got released on May 27th, and I ended up just having so much stuff going on. I never actually got time to picking it up. And then Gamefly gave it to me for the 360 instead of the Xbox One. I honestly think it was my mistake and not Gamefly's mistake. But, you know, I think the only real difference between the two are graphical differences, which is not a real big thing for me, but is one of the things that is actually becoming a bad point to the series, like, because a lot of people are very upset saying that Watch Dogs looks so good at its initial reveal at E3 2012, and then when it finally got out and its final product didn't exactly look the way that it did when it was first revealed. It didn't look as good, and I think a lot of people were like upset. They were like, oh, how did they show off a game? They were lying to us. It doesn't look that good. And yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But graphics don't really concern me, so it really didn't bother me that much. It still is kind of annoying, but also I talked about this before in a previous video, that I felt like the initial footage of games kind of are subject to change, because the thing I was actually talking about was Battlefront. They showed off images the past E3 that just happened not too long ago, and that actually showed a lot of really good footage. Like, they showed the Stormtrooper, which looked great. They showed some of the environments, which look great. But also, it's so early in development that, like I said, these things are possibly subject to change. Developers are going to put functionality above of quality. Above of? Yeah, that's right. And, you know, a lot of times they have to make compromises. If something isn't working in the game, they're not going to waste time on something that isn't necessarily needed. They're going to make compromises. And that's possibly what they did with Watch Dogs. But also I noticed that the way they were talking about Watch Dogs through these past few E3s, because again, it was first revealed in 2012, then it had to go through 2013, and it came out right before 2014. And so those two E3s that we saw Watch Dogs before it got launched, they were spinning and creating a picture that made the game look really innovative, look really cool. And honestly, here's the issue with Watch Dogs that I am totally in support of. It's overhyped. It is absolutely overhyped. I'm not saying it's a bad game. It's definitely a good game with a cool, very unique core mechanic, but it's not a kind of game that we thought was going to be as innovative or as next gen as it ended up being. The way that they made the hacking look is that it is so in depth, and then in the actual game, it wasn't as in depth as they made it seem. There was one instance in some of the demos where you could actually like follow some data streams. You look at like this like junction box or something, and then it goes through, and then you can hack into a computer, and then you hear like a woman in the background. And yet I never encountered that actually in the game. There were like some privacy invasions, but they're not as like detailed as they used to be. It's all like data looking stuff, and they don't actually look regular. And sometimes it's like somebody is arguing with somebody else back, or they're playing a game with their dad watching them, and it's just kind of not what I thought it would be. It definitely was overhyped, and I'm one of the people that hyped up that game. I thought this was going to be the next best thing. Not the next best thing. It's just a game with it's a new IP with a new kind of core mechanic. It's gonna get a sequel. It's no doubt about that. Ubisoft said early on they wanted Watch Dogs to become a franchise. So this is a game that we are going to be seeing again in the future. It's still a good game. Like at its core, it's an open world game. The general idea is you play as Aiden Pierce, who is basically a vigilante and using his master hacking abilities through his phone to actually control the CTOS, which is like the security system that controls the entire city of Chicago. And he's able to tap into like security cameras. He's able to profile people, steal their bank account information so that he can take money and get them out of the ATM. He's able to cause blackouts in sections of the city, which is really cool. Control traffic lights, blow up steam pipes below streets to help get cars destroyed. And there's a lot of cool things you can actually do in this game. It's just not as in-depth as I would have thought that it would have been. I'm not happy with the end result. I'm actually, it was a game that entertained me, and I haven't played all that there is because, like I said, it is an open world game, but it has so many side missions because, like I said before, open world games are easy to mess up because you can make this big open world, but the problem is filling it with things that are going to keep the player engaged. I feel like Watch Dogs did that well. You have a lot of things you could do. There's crime prevention you could do. You could do some ambushing criminal convoys. You can go ahead and fight against human trafficking. You could do, it's right on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember what it was. And there is a bunch of stuff that you actually can do in this game. Some of those things, it's going to keep you engaged, but at the end of the day, you do all these extra quest lines, and then the end result doesn't end up getting as rewarding as you would have thought that it would have been. Like, for example, you do the human trafficking missions, and at the end of it, it's just really nothing special. It's just kind of there, and I'm like, I thought that I would have at least gotten treated to some sort of cutscene or some sort of story concluding element that would have made me feel at least a little bit of satisfaction for all the time and effort I had actually put into it. That's not to say that this is a boring game. I think the story is phenomenal. I think it takes a bit to finally get going, but it's definitely a good game that has a good story that eventually keeps me engaged. And what's actually really cool about the story mission is that it has this sort of badass feel to it. Like, there's a lot of times in the game where you'll be hacking everything. In fact, this game is focused around that. But it makes you, in certain points of the story mission, put you in a situation where you're trying to blackmail somebody and you're trying to show him that you have this evidence and that you're not going to go away. So what you do is, in a public area, you start displaying this like audio file that some stuff that he said that he wouldn't want other people to know about. And then you start displaying video footage on like monitors around him. And it makes me feel like I am awesome. I am a hacking god. Even though it's a story mission and it's very scripted, it made Aiden Pierce feel like a true like hacking badass. And I thought that was really cool because usually in games and in movies, usually the guy who's doing all the hacking and who's displaying the blackmail is the bad guy. But in this case, he's the good guy, and you are the good guy, and you are that guy. And I thought that was really cool. There's also another couple of times this happens in the game where you are following the feed of security cameras and you're trying to lead another character through dangerous area. And what you do, it kind of reminded me of a scene in the Matrix movie where Morpheus is trying to get Neo through the cubicles to avoid the agents. And I like that. It was just like, all right, go now. And there's a cubicle behind you. Go inside. And God, I felt that those were really well done. And, you know, when the game finally gets in like full swing and it's in its final act and it's going and the music kicks in, and I thought that was really cool. The game had a really good villain, had a couple of good villains, actually. In matter of fact, pretty much a lot of the characters, some may not get more, will get more screen time than others, and some may have a little bit more development than others, but I think that the voice acting worked really good with other characters. I think that, you know, the overall characters themselves, like I thought T-Bone and Jordy were some of my more favorite characters in the entire game. I really liked the general idea of everything in the game, but there are some negatives to this game. Driving is a little clunky. It's not something that I feel like, you know, you play games like Grand Theft Auto, you're so used to the driving mechanic, and you jump into Watch Dogs and it's like, this is not, because I'm crashing into everything, I'm knocking over lampposts, I'm hitting civilians. There's a reputation system in this game, but I don't really know about its effects. Like, I'm a good guy because I generally, whenever I play a role-playing-esque game that has like a reputation system, I usually play as the good guy first, because the decisions that I make, I like to think that I would do these things. Like, I wouldn't kill people, I would help people. I'm trying to be a good guy and trying to make the right decisions and trying to create an awesome image of myself. And I don't honestly know if there's like a downside if you decide you're going to be bad. I haven't really looked into that yet. But driving, you hit civilians. I've killed so many civilians by accident just simply because I have accidentally hit them or I've injured them. And it's, God, I end up just hitting everything. I eventually start taking a liking to the motorcycles of the game, because I feel like that was a little bit more controllable, and it was a lot more convenient too, because when you put up the blockers, your vehicle, the motorcycle is actually able to go vroom, right through them, and then whoever's chasing you is crashing into them. So there's some cool things, but also crime prevention isn't all that cool too, because of its detection. When it detects you, what you basically have to do with crime prevention is that you can do it one of two ways. You can either use your phone to scan people who have a connection to it, or you'll wait for the game to set up a blip, and then you'll follow the waypoint over to the mission. And then you have to wait in the shadows, have the profile, find out either who's a criminal or a potential victim, and you just sort of wait there, waiting for the actual crime to commence, and then the game will prompt you to intervene. But you can't jump out before that, because if the criminal sees you and his detection meter goes all the way up, then you're going to fail the mission. It's going to spook him away. That would make sense if before the guy pulls out a gun, because there was a mission where the guy like pulls out a gun, the detection meter goes all the way up, and I'm like, he pulled out a gun. That was ample time for me to engage and intervene. But because the game didn't tell me now is the time to intervene, the guy was like, all right, never mind. I kind of took that a little bit from Escapetionist. Zero Punctuation actually made that joke where they were like, I'm hiding in the bushes, and I go, ha ha, and then the guy like has like the gun in front of his face, but because the game told me that it wasn't good, it said nah, and everybody walks away hand in hand. It doesn't make any sense, but I can totally see where he's getting at. But there was also another feature, not really feature, but there was another incident in the game where I was like trying to find the guy. I pulled up in a car, but apparently he was hiding behind a wall, and I just went zoop, and it went whoop, and then I failed. I didn't even know he was there, and I got so mad. So that, I think, was a little bit bad. There's a hacking mini game, because one of the things you can do in this game, which is going to probably become very needed, is that you can hack into CTOS towers and centers, and this will unlock areas of the map so that you can actually profile and hack into other things and get access to side missions in that area. And there's also, you can unlock a hideout so that you can fast travel to places. So there are times where you are going to have to hack into these systems, and it will prompt you with a hacking mini game where you have to like change certain it's like a puzzle where you just have to get the data streams to certain points, and you can unlock those points, and then you can go to more points. And I'm like, I did not enjoy that. And also, they kick in the full swing at the end of the game, and they're like really complicated and stuff, and I'm like, they're not too hard. Like, you can do them. I'm not like, you're not an idiot. You don't feel like an idiot. You will get them. Some of them have like a time limit, and then it like resets it, and it's annoying. It's annoying and it's stupid. So I kept talking earlier about how the characters and their voice acting was really good, but there was a specific character that didn't have good voice acting, and that was the main character, Aiden. He did not have good voice acting. I think he was delivered very straight. He was delivered very bland and boring. He had like a grittiness to him, sounded like he was smoking for a bit. But I guess it just didn't work for me. Like he just sounded so monotone and so boring and so bland. I mean, his character was cool, what he said was cool, and some of the actions that he did was cool. The voice didn't illustrate that. There were also moments where, like, okay, the script demands that you need to do this with more emotion. You have to do this with more feeling and more passion. And then he breaks character. It goes from to, oh, how you doing? And it's just like, you broke character, and it doesn't make any sense that your voice would sound like that. Actually, it would sound better if you sounded like that throughout the entire game, but you didn't. So what is going on? I actually looked it up. I actually thought that the guy who plays Aiden Pierce is the same guy who played Garrett in Thief. Not the same guy, but it's the same idea. The guy just delivered him very straight, very boring, and it just didn't go as illustrated. And I think that was a big fallback on the game. Also, like I said, the game wasn't that innovative, wasn't as innovative as we thought. I still think it is, in its small regard, some kind of innovative, because it's new IP that introduces a new kind of mechanic that we had not seen before, but I don't think it was as in-depth as perhaps it was billed to us, or perhaps the impression that I got and maybe other people got. But the game does have its fair share of positives. Like, I think that, it has like I said before, it has its good amount of side stuff to do. It had a good shooting mechanic, where it wasn't like so. I always like to talk about Tomb Raider, because I did not like its shooting mechanic, especially in its multiplayer. Like, it's all like crazy and stuff. But I thought, it wasn't as like easy as Grand Theft Auto. It still had a bit of challenge to it, and it was like a happy medium. I thought that was really good, and it also had this focus ability that kind of reminded me of the Deadeye for Red Dead Redemption, which is it'll slow down time enough for you to get a precise shot. I thought that was cool, but you could also like use that when you are driving. And I actually saved a couple of NPCs' lives, because I would be driving in a car and I would slow down time to go zoom, and then go around them, and that was cool. I really liked that that feature that they put into the game. But also, another thing that very much surprised me was that the game had this feature built into it, and I knew about it, and I was actually afraid I was going to get annoyed by it, which is other players can hack into your game and try to steal your stuff. Likewise, you could do the same to them. I was like, I'm never going to do this. I'm going to get annoyed when people do it to me. One of my more favorite parts of the game, because it has a very unique experience to it. It has like this stealth mechanic. By the way, stealth in this game, pretty good. It has this sort of like, you jump into somebody else's game, you ID them, or you profile them, figure out who they are. And obviously, for the person who is invading, the person who's on the offense here, they don't really need to profile. They know who they're going after. But once they start going after them, they hack into their phone, and then they sort of wait to engage. And then once they initiate the hack, they got to wait for it to fill up to 100%. And they got to hide pretty much. But you can't leave a certain area. You got to be within a certain distance of the player. But what's cool is that like you can like hide in cars and like sort of scoot down to try and like hide. And I love doing that in the main game, just like zoom, pulling right into a parking spot and then just sliding down and hiding from the cops. If they get close, they can still see you, and obviously it's the same for people who try to hack into your game, or people that are trying to defend when you are trying to hack. They can obviously see you, and also they can hack into cameras and get like a wide variety of view. But there's like, you are Aiden Pierce, but to other people you appear as a regular NPC, so you can actually act like an NPC just walking right by them. And there's some strategy that you can do in this as well. Like the player who's trying to find the other hacker can shoot into the air, and when the NPCs scatter and one person doesn't, that's obviously the person you're looking for. Like I said, they can hack into certain things to try to get you to draw out, or they just keep running around until they find you. It's just a really cool, very unique kind of mechanic. I like doing it. It was like, I got excited when they were like, your game's being hacked, and I was like, yay! And then I was like, I get to go after this person. And it's just a really unique kind of multiplayer, and there are certain different variations to it, like there's tailing missions and stuff, but in its core, it's definitely something I thought I was going to get annoyed by, and I wasn't. It was something that was very enjoyable. A lot of the high level hacks, like I said before, the story takes a while to kick in. Likewise, a lot of the hacking is introduced right out of the gate, and the hacks you get are very basic. You can hack into street signs. I'm sorry. You can hack into street lights. You can hack into cameras, and you can hack into certain other things, but not much more than that. As you level, you start getting the like blackout. You start getting like there's a ping you can send out and like tag other people around you. Those are really cool, very useful hacks that you can do. There's also a crafting system. You can like craft frag grenades or IEDs. And also these special abilities that you can get, like blackout. You actually have to craft it before you can do it. I thought that was good. I think it, as the game built up, I started becoming more and more badass rather than it just unlocking. But I think the leveling system was solid. I think the crafting system was solid. I think a lot of this game was solid. It was good. I think it's just just held back by being overhyped. There was too many promises going into it, and not a lot of those promises are fulfilled. I think that as far as side quests being, satisfying, I think that there's a misstep there. I think that in almost like Garrett, because of Thief, because he sounds like Aiden. I think Aiden's voice acting was a misstep. There are some missteps, but not oddly enough, it's actually not surprising to me. The game all around, very good. I mean, I would actually go buy it again. Like I said, I got it for the 360. I would now go ahead and buy it for the Xbox One because this is definitely a game that I would like to experience again. Maybe I would want a different experience on the next-gen consoles, and we'll just go from there. But, I think that there's enough to do in this game that'll keep me engaged. I think there's enough to do with its multiplayer that will keep me engaged. And I think that the story mode was also fun enough that I would do it again. So, overall, the review and some future Let's Plays of this game are, in fact, coming. But I was very pleased with what I experienced in Watch Dogs. I was afraid that it wasn't going to be as good. A lot of people have been saying it was bad. It's not bad. It's a good game. So that's all I'm going to say about Watch Dogs. I was very happy with what I experienced. So I want to talk about Summer Games Done Quick 2014. So for those who don't know what this is, Summer Games Done Quick is being held usually in the summer, obviously, in June 22nd to June 28th. So it's already done by now, and it gets live streamed through Twitch. And it's basically a charity event. It's a Doctors Without Borders. So they raise for money. They get donations from people from Twitch, and they're just speed running games. You see these guys, and they're just like they're telling you about these hacks and some tricks that will make you go faster, things that will make the game faster. They're beating games like Halo in 2 hours. They're beating games like Ocarina of Time in a half hour, Majora's Mask in 2 hours. And it's just like, these games took me days to beat, and they're doing it. Well, not Halo 2. I could actually knock out Halo 2 in a day if I just sat down and had nothing to do that day and was living off of soda and chips. But no, I thought that this was definitely, like, they were doing like Super Meat Boy and Octodad, and these are all like just the way they were doing it. They just knew the game inside and out. The fastest way to get across, the fastest way, all the glitches and stuff. I was just like, I am so entertained by this. And that's not sarcasm. As much as I like to as much as I think that I gave that very boringly, but I was so thoroughly entertained. I was sucked in. I had my full attention. I was finding past runs that they have done. The site is actually speeddemosarchive.com. They have a YouTube channel for the same name, except for the .com part. And so you can look up a lot of their past runs, and this is so interesting. Like, it's definitely, they are smarter gamers than me, and I am probably never going to be able to speedrun a game. But it was so impressive the way they were doing it. Like, just, the hacks are one thing, knowing how to do the hacks, but there was this one guy who was playing Super Meat Boy. Speedrunning Super Meat Boy is definitely something to brag about. But another thing is that he was able to do like the first few levels of Super Meat Boy blindfolded. He had a shirt over his face, and he kept doing it through sound. He was listening to the sound cues to figure out when he could die, what was in the level and stuff like that. But he was actually beating the level. Like, he would bounce on a wall, wait, then jump over a saw. And I was just like, that is impressive. That is impressive. People like, these guys like speedrun these games, and they just like, that is what they do. They Twitch, and it's like, I've been speedrunning Halo 2 for 6 years, and I'm like, you've been playing the same game. Obviously, they haven't been playing the same game for 6 years, but it's just like, you keep going back to that, just trying to beat your time, and it's like super competitive. And there was also this guy Cosmo. I really like this guy. He speed ran Ocarina of Time. There's also, actually, before I start going into that, there's actually several events that these guys do. Not several, but two. They do Summer Games Done Quick in the summer. Then they do Awesome Games Done Quick in January. and that is for Prevent Cancer Foundation. So they donate money to cancer charity, and this guy was doing it, I believe, at Awesome Games Done Quick. It could have been Summer Games Done Quick last year. I don't actually remember, but he was playing Ocarina of Time. He beat it in 30 minutes. Actually beat it in like probably 20 or so. And then there was another game he played, Castlevania 64, which is a game that as a kid, I loved that game. Like I beat it twice. It was a game that was very challenging for me, but I saw him running it and he was just speed running. And there were like moments where I'm like, ooh, like I'm rooting for him so much that if it looks like he's about to die, I'm like, because it would hurt his time because he would have to get reverted back. And actually in the Castlevania 64 run through, he actually did die pretty early on and that hurt him. It ended up being his only death. So if he didn't get that kill or if he didn't die in that section, his time would have been a lot better. But these guys are competing for world records and it's definitely a new entertainment I found and that I'm super interested in and that I'm continuing to watch. I just got done watching this guy run Majora's Mask, which is another one of my childhood favorites. God, it is a new kind of video that I like to watch. These are like you have to be committed to it. Like you have to watch it is a couple hours sometimes and you have to sit there. I usually don't go toward the 4-hour ones. I usually the ones that I think 2 hours is kind of my limit, or if it kind of goes over slightly 2 hours and I'll watch it, unless it's, I don't know. I haven't actually found the 4-hour one I'd be willing to watch. So, oh God, this, like I said, it concluded. These guys raise money for charity, so it's an awesome cause. I'm totally in for that. And it's just really entertaining to watch. Even if you put it on Twitch, play it in the background, it's just every once in a while, glance at it and I'd be like, oh wow, this guy beat the game while I was playing Call of Duty. And it's just, I don't know. It was a new form of entertainment that I found and definitely something that I enjoyed very much. So it is over, like I said. So we won't see it again until January when they do Awesome Games Done Quick. And that's when they raise money for cancer prevention. So another thing I have on my list to talk about was obviously the Steam summer sales. Now this goes, it all of a sudden popped up. Like there were rumors that it was going to come up early. A lot of people were like seeing that Steam was gearing up for something. And then they finally launched it. Like I said before, this is something that usually happens in the middle of July, not so much in June. But then all of a sudden, June 19th, boop, there it is. And games are like 90% off, 80% off. Excuse me. And it goes all the way to the 30th. So I've been like so here's, for those who don't know how the Steam sales work, there are a couple of different sales that they go through. There's the daily sales. Every 24 hours, this one rotates through. And it has about, I want to say 9, possibly 12 games. Then there's flash sales every 8 hours. This rotates. And then they have community sales where people vote for the next section of games that they would like to get a discount on. That goes every 8 hours. So a lot of times it's like people's wallets are like crying out. They were like, use me, give me to Steam. And I did that. I looked it up. This is actually the first time I actually started paying attention to the Steam sales. And I was just like, mine. And it's just, look, these games, 90% off. You're seeing games like Skyrim. I have Skyrim, so obviously I didn't buy that. But like Skyrim's going for like $15. And I'm just like, that's a good deal. So a lot of people are just like grabbing all they can. And there were a lot of games that I'm like, I never heard of that game. I'll buy it anyway because it's only $2. And if it's not good, it's $2. But one game that I did buy that I put so much time into is Papers, Please. I got this game for 70% off. It was $10. I bought it for $3. And the general idea of it is it's a paperwork simulator. That sounds boring, but you're basically a guy who runs a checkpoint and you're basically letting people into your country. You're either approving them or you're denying them. And they give you their passport. They give you some paperwork. As the game progresses, you have to check more stuff. But it's really, really just so detailed, so intricate, and so like immersive. Like you wouldn't think a paper simulator would bring me in like that, but it did, and it did it well. And I was just like, this is fun. Oddly, in its own way, it's fun, and I didn't expect it to be fun. Like I said before, the game gets harder as you progress, but there are so many layers to this game. You don't want to screw up. You have a family to take care of. You have to earn so much money in the day because you have to take care of your wife, your son, your uncle, your mother-in-law, and you have to pay for rent, food, and heat. and you just got to keep up with everything. Sometimes something will be thrown at you where it's like, all right, well, your son's sick. Now you have to buy medicine. Here's your son's birthday. You must buy him a gift. And then, like, as you progress, it'd be like, oh, you want to upgrade your booth? You can get little shortcuts to pull up your stamps by hitting tab or something. Or you can upgrade to better living quarters. It may cost a little bit more in certain areas, but you are going to be living much comfortably. And also, sometimes the game will give you curveballs, like I said. Sometimes a terrorist attack will happen. It will cut the day short, and anybody that you have ever processed throughout the day that is what you get paid for. You don't get paid for anybody else. Everybody you process is what you get paid for. I think it's $5 every person. So you could process like 10 people, and I'll get like $50 for it, which is usually the norm. I try to get about like 10 people every day. But also the game will give you like certain ideas where there's this girl that comes up and she's like, all right, look, I know I don't have my paperwork right, but if you deny me, I'm going to die. If you send me back to my country, I will die. You must let me into your country. And I'm like, because you don't want to screw up, because you get citations and it'd be like, oh, you screwed up. And if you screw up so many times, you obviously lose your job. And you'll get like, first of all, every day you'll get 2 warnings. And then the third citation, they'll start deducting pay. And I guess if you do that so many times, like if you get so many citations, you will lose your job. Or if you get them so frequently, I don't know how it actually works. I don't know if there's like a set number, and then after you do so many days well, it like that number decreases or something. I don't understand the threshold, because I have gone through several endings. I've never actually finished the game with my job intact, which actually is a game mode called Endless. And the way you unlock that game mode is to actually beat the game with your job intact. And I've never done that yet. But there's also, like, there's this guy that comes in. I think he's part of a terrorist group, but I'm not sure. Where he'll come in and he'll be like, he'll give you, like, this slab or this plate that'll have, like, a bunch of letters on it. It won't make any sense. Then the next day, he'll come back and he'll give you another plate. And then you put that over top of that, and you'll start seeing, like, names and stuff. And he'll be like, you let our 2 agents through. And then, you let them through, and then some bad stuff will happen, or some bad stuff won't happen if you don't let them through. The game throws you curveballs where it's like, it makes you think like, they will pay me well if I help them out, but if I don't, what will they do? Will they kill me? Maybe I'll do something. So you get the idea. It's like there's so many different things you think about. There is a sort of story to it. The word story isn't exactly the way I would describe Papers, Please, because there is a narrative in a way. Like it's there, I'll say. I mean, I don't think it's definitely, it's there. The game was developed by this guy, Lucas Pope, who was a former developer of Naughty Dog and former developer from Naughty Dog. He left in, what do I have down here in my notes? He left to become an independent developer. Oh, he actually worked on the Uncharted series. And he left to become an independent developer. Started working on the game in November of 2012 and ended it 9 months later. And, he also stated that he would be willing to put this game on to tablets and the PlayStation Vita, but also understanding that, with the Vita, he's going to have to change some of the core, like, mechanics. Not the core mechanics, but he's going to have to change the layout and things so that it would work with a handheld. But honestly, I think that when it comes to a tablet, I guess he doesn't have to change that much because it's all like you just push what's going on. I would play the hell out of this game if it was on a tablet. Just be like, all right, I'm at work and I'm just waiting for downtime to happen. I'm just like, all right, Papers, Please. Beep, 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 beep. So I'm like, all right, I'm done doing my actual work. Time to do more work in a video game. I imagine this game has got to be the hardest game to pitch to other people because you're basically coming up and be like, dude, you should play Papers, Please. You play as a guy who's at a checkpoint, and you got to check people's paperwork to make sure they're not right. Dude, it's awesome. There's so many layers to it. And it's just like, that doesn't sound like a fun game at all. And I got to actually pay money for that? I'm not going to buy it. It's a game that you must experience, though. You got to experience it. You got to experience Papers, Please. That is a really detailed, very layered game. There's so much in this game, and it's just like immerses you, and you'll waste your days, many days, on Papers, Please. So there is the why do I have an accent all of a sudden? That is the Papers, Please commercial ad read that I decided that I was going to do today. What are we at? We're at about a half hour, more or less. I also want to talk about The Forest because that was a game. It is a first-person survival horror game. being developed by End Night Games for the PC. And this game got into pre-alpha release through Steam Early Access on May 30th. So we're talking about a month ago now. This game is cool. Like, I like what I've seen. I actually never heard about it until one of my friends told me, hey, dude, The Forest definitely seems like a game you would like. You like horror games, you like Minecraft, and this game is like a combination of the two. And I'm like, oh, that's neat. Let me go check it out. And I checked it out, and I'm like, oh, this definitely has a very cool concept, but it's pre-alpha. And here's the problem with pre-alpha games, or even any early access game, really. They're buggy. They're not games that are finished. They're not their final products. They are not the final version of them. So there's issues with them. There's like slow texture pop-ins. There's like glitches left and right, and you can fall through the world all the time. And I'm just like, you got to pay for this? Like, I would not pay to play a broken game. Like, that's one of the reasons why I've never played DayZ or Rust. Those two games went into early access. Both of them were plagued by so many cheaters, so many bugs. Like, zombies in DayZ will walk through walls and kill you. And I'm like, what is that? Like, there's no detection, no obstacle detection. I forget what the word is. I'm thinking of a phrase. I can't even think about it. But it's just like, I'm not going to play a broken game and pay money for it. That's just not going to happen. It's just, I will wait for the game to get its full release, and then I will check it out. And if it's good, then I will possibly buy it. The Forest is the game I think that I am most rooted for. A lot of people are saying that this is what Rust should be, where it's survival. Like, what you can do is you can actually cut down trees. You can go ahead and find food, actually build shelters. There's some work you need to put into it. Like, you got to cut down like 80 logs in order to build like a huge cabin. But I imagine that it'd be worth it. But you also got to combat like these cannibals that are throughout the game. But there was this one thing, and I think this is where it plays into like the horror aspect, is like, after you get killed once, you get taken to the cannibal's cave. And then when you're down in that cave, you can venture around, and there are some images in there that are pretty gruesome, like people just hanging from the ceiling dead. But then you go and explore certain areas of this cave, and you see like this like weird monster. And it's just like, what is that? It's got like 5 or 11 arms, and it's like got like 4 legs, and it's just walking like, and I'm just like, what is that? Like, it scared the crap out of me. The guy I was watching it, I saw this and I was like, oh my, what is that? Instantly, it makes me want to play it, but it's still a broken game. And it's just like, oh, some games do early access good. I think Minecraft did it right, where they had the game introduced, it was cheap. And then as they started in adding extra features to the game got more and more and more expensive until its final release. And then it became one of the world's most popular games ever. So it's actually a game that I love very much. To me, I feel like early access games are games that I'm most likely not going to play until I finally get the full version of it. Because it's either one of two things. It's either A, the developers ran out of money and now they're trying to get the early access money so they can finish developing their game. Or B, they're trying to build up hype to get people excited about it, to know about it. And honestly, I don't know which one is which. I mean, DayZ has been in development for years, and it, to me, doesn't seem like it's getting any better. Like, it's supposed to be a zombie apocalypse simulator, but I've seen people play it before. The only real danger are other players who will shoot you on sight rather than actually working with you. Some players will work with you. Most likely they will shoot you. I think the permadeath is definitely a cool feature, but there's like, I think that the people who made DayZ made the mod for Arma. And they were like, oh, this is cool. Let's make it a standalone game. And then they discovered how hard it is to actually make a full game. And then you have DayZ in its current form. And they can't regulate the cheaters, which is another reason why I never went for Rust. Forest is a single-player game right now. They said that they are going to implement multiplayer. I hope it's optional. Because if it's not optional, I am not going anywhere near the Forest. Because that will guarantee cheaters, hackers, all of that. And it's going to just hurt it's going to hurt your experience in the game, and it's going to suck, and I don't like that. And I'm not going to buy a game to play online to get annihilated by people who act like jerks, and then my experience is ruined. So it's definitely not going to be a thing that I'll be experiencing anytime soon. I will be keeping an eye on the Forest, though, because this definitely is a game that I would be very, very, very interested in. So like I said before, I want to talk a little bit about Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. The interview that they talked about, these are the guys who are actually developing the game, And they talked about how Kevin Spacey came into the picture. And the reason why they came into the picture was that they were creating this game and they created this character. And they were like, oh, man, Kevin Spacey would be perfect for this. But then they forgot about it. They were like, yeah, whatever. And then when it came time to actually start talking about who they were going to cast, they started being like, oh, well, Kevin Spacey would be perfect for this role. Activision's like, done. And then they went and got him. Apparently, Kevin Spacey has played Call of Duty games before, so he's probably a fan of the series and decided to come in, and he did work. And I think that what they said was that like, he's going to add a new layer to the narrative, which is one of the reasons why I like Call of Duty. As much as I like to say that the game is really starting to be past its time, it already has gotten very much past its time. But one of the things that keeps getting me to come back was that I think that the story modes of Call of Duty are very strong. I liked Black Ops 2 a lot. I think Black Ops 1 was all right. Of course, Modern Warfare 1 and 2 were really good. And their story modes of these games are really good. But obviously, Call of Duty Ghosts not that great. So I have new hope with Advanced Warfare. With Kevin Spacey adding into that, it's like, this is kind of cool. The game is essentially done. There's just some polishing that they need to do to it, which obviously is like making things, fine-tuning it. So I like what I've heard so far. They also started talking about multiplayer a little bit. They said that they started talking about like the exosuit, and energy weapons, because there's like new energy weapons that are going to be implemented in the game. We kind of saw this in some of the footage that we've seen at E3, but the exosuit, the energy weapons, they carry over into multiplayer. They didn't say much more than that, but then they started talking about how the exosuit was going to be a cool feature where like you can like jump and like vertically kick down, and it adds a whole new dynamic. The way they were talking about it made me just be like, I am super interested in everything that you were saying at the present time. This is definitely a cool concept. Like I have invigorated hope that maybe they're adding in this exosuit, and I think the exosuit and all of the abilities that come with it are going to be different enough for the multiplayer to be unique. I'm still anxiously awaiting the day where we finally see multiplayer footage for Advanced Warfare, because this is a game that I'm excited about now. Like, I wasn't really excited for Ghosts. I wasn't really excited for Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2 I actually ended up liking anyway. But Advanced Warfare is now a game where I'm just like, yay! So I'm super excited for that. I think that what they've said so far, they're saying all the right stuff. This is when developers are building up their game right. They're just saying all the right stuff. I just hope they're not lying. So I'm excited for Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. But one of the other games that are first-person shooters that have been recently been coming under fire is Battlefield Hardline. The open beta is coming to the Xbox One before it releases on October 21st. The Xbox beta will be different than the current one. So I don't know if that means it will be a different multiplayer map, maybe a different multiplayer mode. Maybe it'll be a story mission. Because here's a thing for me. I saw the footage of Battlefield Hardline, and I'm like, so that's Battlefield 4, essentially. Like, it's the same game. And I think a lot of people were like, yeah, this is essentially the same game as Battlefield 4. People can actually mod Battlefield 4 to look like this right now for free. And they're like, maybe it shouldn't be a full $60. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a full $60. There's no way it's not going to be. Because this is a new developer, first of all. So I think its multiplayer is generally going to be the same with a different spin on it. So there's going to be new modes, new maps, obviously new maps, because new maps come with everything, even if it didn't change the gimmick that Battlefield Hardline is following. But another cool thing is that Visual Games is developing it. And they're really good at creating stories and telling these stories. So I think the single player is going to be very strong in Battlefield Hardline. I didn't really like the story of Battlefield 3. I thought Battlefield 4 did its job better than Ghost did. I don't think it was all that great either way. It just did a better job than Ghost. I think it had characters that were very, like, you connected with them. But overall, it was just like, I don't know what I was doing the entire time. I was just doing the next thing. But I think that Visceral Games can really put depth into it. Like, I'm also game for having two separate campaigns where you play as a criminal and then you play as a cop, and it's just like two different like, I don't want it to do like a cheap way out where it's just like, these are the same missions, just playing from a different perspective. I would still be interested in that, but hopefully we see like drastically different missions for these two campaigns, if there are even two campaigns. And then the stories that come with them. So I'm excited for Battlefield Hardline to a point, because it's still what we've been seeing for forever. It's starting to do what Call of Duty has been doing. I like the grand scale that Battlefield does, the huge battles, the amount of people that are on it, the amount of destruction you can actually do. But it's been the same now. Like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, they are essentially the same multiplayer. And now Battlefield Hardline, essentially the same multiplayer. So I don't think that there's a lot of variation in their games in the last 3 Battlefield games that we've seen. So I would like to see some sort of variation in Hardline. Make me want to play this. But from everybody who has been playing the closed beta so far, not really anything new at all. So I honestly don't know who has it better. I don't know who, if PlayStation has it better for having access to the closed beta now, or if the Xbox is better because they're going to get access to an open beta later. Also, I don't know what they're doing now. Like, what are they doing? Are they stress testing the servers? Are they just looking for, because the game's going to launch in October. They're not looking for feedback anymore. What they're looking for is just hype. They're trying to build this game up. I think that's what the closed beta is. Then you have an open beta on the Xbox One. So it's just like, there's really no benefit that the PlayStation 4 has over the Xbox One, rather than PlayStation 4 has a closed beta and the Xbox One has an open beta. So you're thinking to yourself, well, the Xbox One is better. Sure, the PlayStation 4 has that beta right now, but so does the PC. So what really does the PlayStation have over the Xbox One? And is the open beta also going to come to the PlayStation 4? Or does, honestly, the exclusivity that was going to come to the PlayStation 4 kind of dissolved, unless they have content exclusives, which I don't know if they do. They might. I don't remember off the top of my head. So, Battlefield Hardline, I think that we just need to see more information on it before I get sold on it. Otherwise, I'm just going to rent it. Because, Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3, I have them both. I play them both, and one of them isn't broken. The other one is. And, Battlefield Hardline, you need to see more. You need to impress me more. Because what I've seen so far, meh. It's meh. Because this is the same game. Anyway, guys, so that was episode 2 of Controller Conscience. Like I said before, if you want to listen to any of the previous topics I talked about, you can do it right over here. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time.